Attack of the Man-Eaters. In the wilds of Africa, two-killer lions were terrorizing an army of men. What made these beasts crave human flesh? By Lauren Tarshish. Colonel J.H. Patterson was dazzled when he first arrived in the African city of Mombasa in March of 1898. The city in present day Kenya was enchanting. It was fresh and green and bathed in brilliant sunshine, Patterson wrote. Patterson was a British engineer who had come to Africa to complete an important job, the construction of the 660-mile-long Uganda Railroad. He led a small army of workers, some 4,000 men, who cut a path through a punishing African desert and a snake infested jungle. It was back-breaking work, and there were constant food and water shortages. But by the time they arrived in Savo Forest, it seemed that the worst was behind them. They welcomed the cooling breezes and gulped down the clear river water. The noise of hammers, sledges, drilling, and blasting echoed merrily through the district, Patterson wrote in his journal. Soon, however, another sound was echoing through the Savo forest. Screams. Night after night, two male lions were stalking into the camp, dragging men away and eating them. Over the next 9 months, these lions would kill some 75 men. The lions behaved with such cunning that some of the workers could not believe they were animals. Rather, they thought the lions were evil spirits, devils in lion form. Gruesome attack. The first hint of trouble was the disappearance of two workers in the middle of the night. Rumors swirled that two lions had stormed into a tent and dragged the men off into the darkness. Patterson was skeptical. Lions occasionally attack humans, of course, but usually they preyed on the vulnerable, a woman gathering water, a lone hunter tramping through the forest. Patterson found it hard to believe the lions would barge into a bustling, crowded camp. Finding no lion prints or human remains, he concluded that the men had probably been robbed and killed by other men in the camp. But a few nights later, the quiet was again shattered by screams. A popular worker, an Indian man named Yungan Singh, was gone. This time there was no doubt about what had happened. Three of Singh's tent mates had witnessed the grisly attack. A lion had thrust its head through the open tent door and grabbed Singh. He wrapped his arms around the lion's head and shouted, "Choro," Hindi for "let go," struggling wildly as the lion headed him out of the tent. Patterson and another man followed a trail of fresh blood and paw prints into a thicket. There they discovered what little remained of Singh's body. It was the most gruesome sight I have ever seen, Patterson would say later. He vowed to hunt the lions down. Each night he stationed himself in the branches of a different tree, where he scanned the darkness for hours at a time. The lions seemed to be purposely avoiding him. They were not tempted by the live goats or donkey carcasses he left out as bait, preferring, it seemed, human flesh. The lions eluded Patterson and continued feasting on workmen, always attacking in different areas of the camp. The workmen became so terrified that they refused to work. Hundreds fled. All construction on the railroad came to a halt. Fear and sleeplessness. Weeks went by, months. Patterson nearly went mad from fear and sleeplessness, but he did not give up. One December night, Patterson was perched on a crude shooting platform. In the darkness, he heard the snapping of a twig and the rustle of a large animal pushing through the brush. The man-eater, Patterson thought. It soon became clear that the lion wasn't just lurking in the bush. It was stalking Patterson. For hours, Patterson waited motionless as the lion circled below, growling, its eyes glistening in the darkness. Eventually, the lion hunkered directly beneath him. Patterson's platform was so flimsy that all the lion had to do was charge at the poles holding it up, and Patterson would come toppling down. He gathered his courage and took hold of his rifle. Steadying his shaking arm, he took aim and pulled the trigger. His shot exploded in the darkness and was followed by a roar and sounds of violent thrashing. He could see the lion stagger into the bush, and then silence. Patterson waited anxiously, convinced that the lion was still alive. As dawn broke, he followed a trail of blood. There before him was a crouched lion that seemed ready to pounce, but in fact the lion was dead. Workers rushed over to Patterson and lifted him into the air. They paraded him around, shouting with joy. Congratulations poured in from around the country. The celebration became even more jubilant 9 days later when Patterson managed to kill the second lion. The terror of the man-eaters had finally ended. Modern answers. For more than a century, the story of the man-eaters of Tsavo captivated scientists. What made those two lions behave so ferociously? Most experts at the time agreed that these beasts were rogues, that their behavior was not typical of lions. In 1924, Patterson sold the lion skins to the Field Museum in Chicago for $5,000. Over the past 15 years, scientists have been studying the episode with particular intensity. They learned that one of the lions suffered from injuries to its teeth and jaws, which would have made hunting large animals more difficult. After a trip to the Tsavo forest, the scientists also learned that the lions there might be naturally more aggressive than other African lions. They kill people from surrounding villages every year. Finally, by poring over historical records from 1898, the Field Museum scientists learned that there was a drought in the area at the time Patterson was there. More importantly, there was an outbreak of a disease called rinderpest, which killed cattle as well as large animals like wildebeest and antelopes. This would have been a crisis for the lions, which preyed on these animals for food. All this information came together like pieces in a puzzle. It has enabled scientists to understand the terrifying events of 1898 more clearly. The lions of Tsavo, it is now believed, were not rogues. They were naturally aggressive animals suffering from a variety of problems: injury, drought, and a shortage of prey. Perhaps the man-eaters weren't so savage after all. Perhaps they hunted the railroad workers for a simple reason: they were hungry. Today, you can stand within a few feet of the man-eaters. They are on display at the Field Museum. When you stare into the majestic faces, it's easy to imagine the terror Patterson's men must have felt on those dark nights more than a century ago. But it's also clear that the events of 1898 were tragic not only for the lions' victims, but also for the lions. Number 1. Read the sentences. Circle the underlined phrase that best helps the reader understand the meaning of the word lurking. One December night, Patterson was perched on a crude shooting platform. In the darkness, he heard the snapping of a twig and the rustle of a large animal pushing through the brush. The man-eater, Patterson thought. It soon became clear that the lion wasn't just lurking in the bush. It was stalking Patterson. For hours, Patterson waited motionless as the lion circled below, growling, its eyes glistening in the darkness. Number 2. Part A. Which of the following best explains why the lions of Tsavo attacked humans? A. The lions of Tsavo behaved ferociously, killing 75 men over 9 months. B. One of the lions had injuries to its teeth and jaws, which made hunting large animals difficult. C. The lions of Tsavo attacked humans because they were struggling to survive. D. The lions of Tsavo attacked humans because the men had overtaken their hunting grounds. Part B. Which detail from the article best supports your answer to question 1? A. They were naturally aggressive animals suffering from a variety of problems: injuries, drought, and a shortage of prey. B. The lions of Tsavo kill people from surrounding villages every year. C. The lions eluded Patterson and continued feasting on workmen, always attacking in different areas of the camp. D. The lions were evil spirits, devils in lion form. Number 3. Which piece of evidence from the article best supports the claim that people today understand the lions of Tsavo better than those in the past? A. The workmen became so terrified that they refused to work. Hundreds fled. B. For more than a century, the story of the man-eaters of Tsavo has captivated scientists. C. The lions of Tsavo, it is now believed, were not rogues. D. When you stare into their majestic faces, it's easy to imagine the terror of Patterson's men must have felt on those dark nights more than a century ago. Number 4. Which sentence best states the main idea of the section, fear and sleeplessness? A. Patterson was afraid of the man-eaters. B. Patterson hadn't slept in months because he was so terrified of the lions. C. Patterson decided to kill the man-eaters. D. Patterson finally shot the man-eaters and finally felt safe. Number 5. Which year did Patterson sell the lions' skins to the Field Museum in Chicago for $5,000? A. 1924. B. 1942. C. 1824. D. 2024.